What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your weekly movie podcast focusing on reboots, remakes, sequels, adaptations, and continuations of stories that have been done before and are going to be done again, and whether or not those things need to exist. This is the week of February 9th, which means we are doing Birds of Prey. I, of course, am your host, Blake Schultz, and my co-host is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And here we go.
Yeah.
The fifth and sixth. Sixth?
Six sounds probably more right. Yeah.
Steel, BVS, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam. I had so many notes and I didn't bother to make sure this was the sixth one.
Yeah, it's six.
The sixth one. The sixth and maybe final movie in the DC expanded universe of films. It's interesting because what are they doing? We don't know.
No clue.
The DC expanded universe is starting to feel like a BoJack Horseman scene making fun of superhero universes because I don't know
what the game plan
where
is,
we are,
what we're doing. I don't know where this takes place. None of this makes sense to me.
Ezra Miller is showing up in the TV shows finally, which is great, but what does that mean? Are we even going to make a Flash movie? We don't know.
Yeah.
Because also, I'm pretty sure that Crisis on Infinite Earth ended with, like,
no
the
Earth.
multiverse is gone, but not really, but don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have Joker, you have this, you have the Batman.
Yeah, which is going to be completely away from everything else. I was like, what is going on?
And, I get it. The comic books do this. They have Earth 2, they have all these what-if stories, but it's not like you walk in and there's 10 books running in one universe.
Right. Yeah.
And if they do like a DC Black label, or they're very clear to tell you what's going on.
I mean, when the Batman comes out, granted the first one's probably not going to have it, but we could essentially have 3 different Jokers within a 5-year run. And you're like, I guess?
That's fine. Maybe that's what he saw when he sat in the big God chair in the last Crisis and was like, who's the Joker? And the big chair was like, which Joker? And Batman was like, no! But we're not here to talk about the nonsense of the DC comic book universe. We're here to talk about the nonsense of the DC movie universe. Birds of Prey came out. Now, before we get into this, were you excited about the movie before it started, or were you hesitant?
I was hesitant to the point where I didn't want to see this. Were it not for us doing this, I don't think I would have.
Interesting.
Because I'm in that I absolutely hate Suicide Squad realm, and this is the closest to being like a sequel. Like that would be the successor to they're tied at the hip because of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. So everything that I saw, I was like, no, I don't want to see this. And the trailers honestly looked bad to me. The posters looked even worse, and I was like, I don't think this is something for me. So no, I was not excited at all to see this film. However, I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw. I was smiling from ear to ear. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and it leads me as we go along to some really questionable things about the marketing of this film when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I wasn't so out, but I think I was in the just exactly what I just said. I don't really know where we are or what we're doing anymore, so there's kind of a weird notion of me when we do the DCEU now where I don't know if it matters. Almost the same way when I start like a Netflix show now, and I'm like, well, if it's just going to be canceled in a season, do I really want to invest all this time and energy into it? But I like the characters, and I like her playing the role, so that kept me engaged enough in it.
Right.
And, Shazam was all right, and Aquaman was fun, and Wonder Woman was good, so they are kind of in this, when they do it well.
Right.
But I loved it. I loved it so much from start to finish because it's such a brilliantly unique superhero movie.
It is.
Especially in the context of the DCEU. For a movie that's a movie universe rather, that's biggest problem to me was everything's muted. It's going to look like an open world RPG from the 2006 Xbox 360 time.
This is
where we forgot that we had colors besides green and brown and gray.
The Zack Snyder color palette.
Yeah, we're just going to take all of it out. It was so rich and vibrant and alive.
Stunning.
And all of that right away just hooked me into where we are in this whole universe
Yeah.
in place. And I loved the movie. I thought everything about it was also just firing on all cylinders. It was shot well. The design was good. This was easily the best looking Gotham's looked since 1989.
Since the Burton Batman, yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Because the Christopher Nolan Gotham City is incredible, Terrence.
It is.
It's so good, but you know what it is?
But we also lived there. We've been to Chicago.
It's Chicago.
Right. Right.
And that's not bad.
No, but it's for these to
In
be
fact,
a
at
comic
the time,
world.
that's
it's
what
great.
I wanted.
Right.
When I wanted a realistic, grounded Batman,
Exactly.
go to Chicago.
But for us who are comic readers or fans of Batman, Gotham exists in this world where it's hyper realistic. There's some things that are a little bit over the top, a little bit macabre, and that's what the Tim Burton one did. And this one does it in a different way, by getting super colorful and
It's a middle ground between what like the old Universal monster sets they used on 89 Batman used and Nolan's universe.
Right.
It kind of fuses them together when you get to the set pieces like even the prison, but the circus at the end,
Yes.
and Acme Chemical, and this colorful club and bar, but you still see these like run
Grimy
down
stuff.
streets,
Correct.
and it's grimy and desolate and
Yeah.
broken down. And that was probably my favorite thing in the movie, because much like Sex in the City with New York, Gotham is a character.
It is a character in
these
itself.
films.
It is. It's a character in itself. Yeah, the color. You know, when this was all said and done, I was sitting there like, I loved everything. The writing, the writing specifically, because I think this movie is really. I don't want to know if I'll say it's full on funny, like haha, but it's very clever. It's very witty. It feels refreshing and effervescent. And it's one of those ones where the writer who also did Bumblebee, which I loved too, I'm starting like I want to watch everything she does, but I just walked out like, yo, that was a good time, and I have not had that in a DCEU film. I almost want to say, like, there have been parts of it where I really didn't like Wonder Woman was my closest. That ending really bugged me. This one is the first time where I'm like, from start to finish, you nailed the landing. Everything really works in this film.
I thought that it also was a little bit deeper than a lot of the other DCEU movies were.
There's
where
some context, yeah.
I like Batman versus Superman had to kind of tried to have these bigger themes
attempted,
and
yeah.
ideas, and superhero versus superhero, and
Right.
everything else like Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam all have kind of dealt with these concepts of identity and who these people are and what they mean and who are we, and they all kind of land in the same place. That's I'm a superhero and I should stay
And this
and
is
protect
what I will do.
this.
Correct.
And this is a much more unique way of doing I don't want to say coming of age story, but a coming of age story of I've built my entire life around this person and this relationship
Bigger
and
than
what
life
that means.
persona, right?
And now that's all gone.
Yeah.
And who am I? And what does it mean? And instead of where normally with those kind of stories, I feel like they just throw the character into another relationship,
whatever the next
and it's
thing is.
well, now it's a healthy one.
Right.
All of this, they really let her stand on her own at the end and find her own place
Her path.
in Gotham and
Right.
where she's going. And it's not even complete yet.
No,
It's much more of a like, oh, well, I got over
that part.
this thing and I
like,
can stand on my
Now
own.
the next chapter to see where else I grow from here for that. Yeah, it's handled really well. I think it would be real easy to just say that this is so and so, like the Harley Quinn is broken up from the Joker and this is just a sad movie. It's not. It's about her finding herself. It's about her kind of doing. She's a gray area character, so there's some things she does that like really are dickish, but it's her learning from those and kind of growing. Like that may not be the best spot to be a human being. I might need to fix that.
It really shows you too when people get out of those kind of relationships and they go, oh, I was being the person they wanted. I don't even know if I am a villain or
Right.
if I
don't
agree
know. Right. I
with
was like, I
this.
don't know if everything that I did was on my own accord.
How much of these bad things are just like a hangover from what I was doing,
Right.
or like worse. It also, speaking of hangover, it's an R-rated movie that kind of earned its rating, but I think if you even took away the F-bombs and the bigger violence, it does not steer away from really being an adult movie and having these like,
Yeah.
I was hungover and needed
Yeah.
really good breakfast.
So that is the thing. I think I walked out like this is a comic book movie at heart, but it feels like an older, like a grown up. I won't say romance film. Like it's a grown up thematic, like almost plus 20 like coming of age story where you're like, all right, look, I got some stuff that I went through in my younger years that I need to kind of just get out. And it feels different than like the Shazam where you're like, oh, they were dealing with kid stuff. This is actually stuff that grown-ups go through, and that might be why some of the audience is a little all over the place. They don't know what this is. But I feel like this plays to a much more grown-up audience than pretty much any of the other stuff that's in the DCEU. And some of the stuff that like
and it does it in a smarter way. Where normally when they're dealing with like adult themes, it's like, well, is power
beat you over the head?
You become abusive with power, and of course power corrupts. And this is much more adult and like, no, we've all had a hangover and wanted that good sandwich.
Nuance. I want that sandwich, and then if you make me lose my sandwich, I will cry.
These oddly like small relatable moments. I think the other one that everyone's talking about that I'm sure you and I have never gone through, I might more than you do because I have hair, is when she hands the hair tie to Black Canary in the fight. It's these little moments that make the characters more three-dimensional and much more realistic to the context. Because even watching Black Canary like grab her hair in that fight, I was like, oh, I've seen that happen when I did martial arts. I have seen the women who are like, it's everywhere.
Yeah, like I definitely know women who like, you have a hair tie, and her just like, hair tie? And I was like, it's great. There's so many little moments that they have that just make me smile. Like I might not be just outright laughter, but it's so fun and like quirky and effortless. Like all of a sudden Harley's wearing roller skates. Like when does she have time to do a shoe change?
I don't know. A lot of those. Her with the kid also had a lot of those just smaller moments of like pouring cereal for each other and eating and teaching her all these like wrong lessons in the grocery store. A lot of just very small directing beats that made everything feel a lot more real. And it's
an intelligent use of the story and structure to like have Harley be the voiceover, but also kind of like tell it in a non-linear, but also kind of like she's not telling us everything or not telling us everything that we need to know at this moment. And that works for Harley Quinn because she is sort of like a scatterbrain.
Well, that's one thing I really liked about what they did with her character, because her character has always been smart. Right. It's always been this weird, well, she has a PhD and she was a therapist.
And I love that they play back to that quite a few times in the film. Yeah.
And it's really easy, I think, to just make her crazy and wacky and fun, and she's going to hit you with a big hammer and run around in her tight outfit. And there are a lot of moments in this that I think would have been cliche superhero tropes had she not sat down and like broken down the psychology of what's going on.
Correct.
Her big scene with Black Mask where it is, oh, well, now you're just going to monologue to me, but and you think you're a big character because Daddy didn't love you enough, but really what's going on?
Right.
And her even looking at moments and making like quicker decisions. There's a lot of stuff Margot Robbie does with her eyes and hands of like, oh, do I trust this moment? What's going on here? Am I looking around?
Yeah, that helps having a great actress play a character that could, if in other hands, could go one way or the other terribly wrong. Yeah.
Because she's one of those characters where she has to be intelligent. She's fighting Batman.
Right. Yeah.
Like the characters like Victor Zsasz, who are also smarter in this movie.
And they definitely, I always fear with her that sometimes they lose the fact that she used to be a psychiatrist. Like that's a big thing for her, and so it's she understands people probably faster most of the time than the people understand themselves. She just doesn't get herself, and that's fascinating.
I think that's a really great angle to play on the character, and they do that a lot in the comics too. Of like she kind of gets everything going on around her, but because she fell into this abusive, toxic thing with the Joker, her own compass for herself is so far gone.
Correct.
And I think that's a very honest thing to give. I think a lot of people, I know I used to do it in high school a lot, where it was like, oh, Blake will give you such good advice. And then everyone was like, but what about me?
What about my, somebody got something for me? Because I'm out here.
Who's watching The Watchmen? It's always that, that beat of like, well, I took a psychology class to learn what's going on with me. Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Doctors still go to doctors when they need stitches.
Exactly.
You don't see them taking their own temperature and prescribing meds. In fact, it's illegal.
I think that's why one of my favorite, there's a lot of good beats in it, but one of my favorite beats in this movie is when I want to tell it all, but like when she is turned on by a person she trusted, and just the look on her face is like, wait, you dropped a dime on me? Like, I thought, and I'm like, oh, that was heartbreaking because it's like the one person she thought was fine.
Watching her almost completely change and having somebody so innocent in the world be the one that like sells her out,
right?
And then just that quick
just
switch
goes right back. I gotta
of
protect myself now.
Yep, never mind. This
Yeah.
is how the world is.
Right.
Everyone's selling each other out.
Right.
Is also very good for because normally the anti-hero story is they die or they get to carry on with their life
Right.
or they get to go back to the life they had. Those are usually the three options.
Correct.
You just get to keep being forgiven over and over and over
Right.
again, and you keep doing the same thing,
Over
or they
and over.
Walter White you.
Right.
And it was cool having this character kind of land in this place where she didn't get to keep doing the same things, and the
Right.
choices she made affected
Had a ramification.
everybody
Correct.
continuously
Yeah.
through the movie. And she also stayed alive, because why would we get rid of that?
Probably, yeah.
Some of the best casting in the
Correct.
DCEU. So, again, the only other thing to kind of touch on is Black Mask, but we'll get into that more with the adaptation of it, because I have more to say on that. This is obviously adapted from the Birds of Prey comic, which
Yeah.
its first volume was in 1995, which went on with Batgirl and a couple others, and this is clearly much more connected to Gail Simone's Birds of Prey in 2003.
Right.
Which, to spare a whole huge history lesson of, is a very good run that kind of came in with the New 52 and into DC Rebirth. She took it over halfway through, but when asked what makes Birds of Prey unique, specifically when she added Huntress to the rosters, she said, the thing about Birds of Prey that's different from other team-up books is that each character provided a foil for each other that isn't just like, let's fight for 20 minutes. And it got me thinking more about the characters in this and the adaptation angle of it. Do you think these characters provide kind of that almost more emotional foil to one another? They're constantly building and growing off of each other.
Yeah, it happens all the time with the Min one. The Min one's like the way of like interacting with each other is to kick, punch. Whereas I feel like in this, there's a way more back and forth, and it helps that, like we said earlier, that Harley is a psychiatrist, but it helps that they kind of like they use each other as sounding boards. But they like, you are this, and this. Like the scene when Black Canary and Harley first meet, that timeline might be wrong, but when they're in the bar and they first interact on screen, is great because it's like Black Canary's going through some stuff in her brain and Harley's just 3 sheets to the wind drunk. But they interact and Harley usually gets the one up on everybody verbal wise, and Black Canary's just like right there with her.
Well, and even the small moment there where she is drunk and she kind of says to her, like, you know what the Harley Quinn is?
Yeah.
They don't give 2 fucks who you are
Right.
past that.
Right.
I think for Black Canary's arc, that kind of hits her because she goes from being the singer to getting spied on doing the fighting,
Right.
and is just like, we don't care if you don't want to be the driver, you're the driver now.
You're not
Like,
in control.
yeah,
Right.
you're nothing
Right.
except for the tool that Black Mask thinks you are.
Right.
And
you're
without
my plaything, and I can move you wherever I want to put you at.
And without Harley kind of pushing that.
Yeah.
And even when you get to the climax and they're all together, everyone's motivations are so different.
Correct.
That they are kind of all pushing each other in these other places. Even the detective gets... Montoya gets this whole arc of like, well, they're doing it this way, and I kind of
Right.
thought that was bad, but clearly the police force isn't corrupt this
No,
time.
they're not.
They're just shitty.
Inept. Right.
Yeah, like, we kind of do a different take of the Gotham Police Department that I liked a lot, where they're not corrupt and bad, and, if you don't take it, we can't trust you.
They're just not good.
And it is even like
their
this
job.
guy was in the right place at the right time and just didn't give credit, and one of the detectives was like, fingers up to that.
Right,
like,
I'll take it. Yeah.
And kind of watching all of them do that, even in the fights, you have like Huntress giving the car to build them up, and watching everybody do that.
Have their own. Yeah, it worked. They were getting it. Huntress being the super aggressor of all of it, and her having a reason to be based on her past, and how it all. That was smart how that all tied together too. I like that a lot. But when they're in their even in their fighting styles, she's uber aggressive. Like she's the I'm going to be like when they slide down and she's just like it's fast.
We do
fantastic.
not deserve Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
No, she is
when
so
she's
good.
on that slide and gets
Just
up
stops and then
gets
comes
up.
back. It's so good.
Or when she's on those like weird bouncing tongue things.
She's killing it.
Holy hell.
Yeah. So good in that. And then one of my issues that I had in the Suicide Squad stuff was that Harley, her fighting style, she didn't really have one, and it didn't make sense versus a witch. Here, what she does, it works for her. She's more of the gymnast, like the acrobatic portion of it, and I get it. And that's solid. Canary's an ass kicker herself. But I love how her power, she doesn't want to use hers. It's more of like, my parents had this too, and I don't want to put this. This is a frightening thing for me to use. Like, it's hard for me to use this. So yeah, I love that they all had something that was their specialty, and they all had something that they kind of, even in the end, it wasn't easy for them to form a team. And the way that it kind of all comes together, they're still not really a complete unit with all the people in play. Yeah.
Which I also liked, that there wasn't this like Nick Fury
now we're all together
at the end. Well, now Gotham knows, and there's a new blah blah. It was. Two of them were there with Montoya, and Harley's off doing her own thing. Like, don't worry about it. Which I think works really well for her, too, because I like this version of Harley a lot, and her character really grew from her premiere in the Batman animated series in the comics. I think it really kind of started at the New 52 when she was in the Suicide Squad, and it was her and Joker are done, and now she's going crazy, and tries to go steal the cut off Joker face and successfully does it. And then I think it's after Death of the Family, Harley gets her own solo book that pushes her away from Joker and Batman and the Suicide Squad and everything else, where she does start to be the landlady at Coney Island. She joins the roller derby team. It's when she starts valuing human life and animal life more, and like keeps trying to improve the quality in her own like small town.
Right.
Which I thought they did really well here, kind of showing her slowly start to value people and things, and the hyena and the girls on her team and this little girl, and watching her like not care and start
sort of
with,
be motherly, and then not being like, all right, look, I kind of need to take care of this girl. She can't take care of herself.
And not quite being able to do it.
Right, not knowing how to, because she's always been taken care of in her relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And her kind of pushing out of even like Black Mask's like, well, now I own her, and all of her protection for the Joker is gone, and all of these grievances these people have coming back to get her, and her slowly just not wanting it anymore was, I think, a much more interesting way to go about the character than just having her parade around on DeviantArt for people to
overly
look
sexualized
at.
version.
I think we're way past the like McFarlane 90s
big breasted women. Yeah, I
the armor in the RPG that covers your nipple.
Right.
Like, and that's good, because I don't know, there was like a viral tweet going around that I don't want to talk about much, where someone was like, the movie's not going to do well because the women aren't hot. And I was like, first of all, if you don't think Margot Robbie...
Have you seen those three women? All three of them. Janae Smollett is stunning.
If you don't think Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Margot Robbie are attractive on their own...
without you putting them in like skimpy clothing, then there's something wrong with you.
Something's off in your brain. And also, when was the last time that defined a box office? That has never, ever been a thing.
Jesus.
Not that I can think of, at least. No. I don't remember Black Panther cracking $1 billion because they were like, Chadwick Boseman walks around in a bikini thong.
And it is amazing.
Yeah. Not why that movie made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers the swimsuit scene in Endgame. All those scenes in Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise and the team just running around in underwear.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? So that, like, I think they did Harley really well by that. And then you get to Black Mask, who doesn't really have the deepest lore. He's always been a really good character, but, you know, they kind of run through his... He's one of the few villains that in his first appearance, you do get the entire backstory.
The entire story comes out immediately.
Yeah, which I appreciate, because sometimes they introduce a villain and they're like, who could it be?
We'll get to it in a couple of issues. Thanks.
But it really is about these masks, his parents who value society and power and status over their son, and force their son to play with Bruce Wayne so that they'll be seen and noticed. And he grows up to resent that and hates these fake masks that people wear, and kind of goes through building up the underworld and becomes sort of that character with the false face society, which isn't in this movie, but it kind of is.
Sort of, yeah.
It's just not really said.
They don't verbalize it.
He is one of the characters that I've always liked, but is always a little too close psychologically to other Batman villains.
Two-Face and Oswald come up immediately as like, oh, you're using crime boss. Like, that's what they are.
Well, when they made him have multiple personality disorder
It's
in the New 52,
yeah.
I was like, this is filled by Two-Face. The concept of like everyone wears masks and this is my mask and we all do it because we're all fake,
right.
I like a lot, and that goes really into kind of what the Joker did in the 89 Batman of, well, I took off my mask, Gotham, let's see if he'll take off his. And he's barely in Rebirth. In Rebirth, he's just running around with Penguin and somebody else making the black and white, and hiring KG Beast to take out Batman, which is fine. I've always liked him because he is just like the big, cool-looking crime boss.
He looks great. Like, it's a great visual.
Knock you out.
Right.
That being said,
Owen.
Ewan McGregor in this one as an adaptation of the Black Mask that I know mostly from the Arkham Asylum video games. This is infinitely more interesting than any of those villains.
He's chewing scenery, but he's doing it in a very subtle and like appreciative and still dangerous way.
Dripping with style.
It is.
We haven't had a villain that just oozes style like this in a long time.
But also can make you feel 1,000% uncomfortable. Like he feels like, oh, he is one of the classiest men in this room, but also the most off the hinges and will do some crazy stuff type of gentleman as well. And there's like two sequences that I can really think of that I'm like, oh, he is uncomfortable. One of them we talked about off mic with the whole club sequence with the woman. But even when he has Victor Saz hanging those people up and he's talking to the girl and she's just like, I'm going to let you go. And then it's like, was that a snot button? Kill her. Get this out of here.
Just cutting off those people's faces. That was good.
It's fascinating to watch him work. I haven't had a villain like this that I was this just enthralled with every time they were on screen in a long time.
A villain too who isn't really competing with anybody, but is trying really hard to buy his place in the underworld. Right. He's not really working to earn it. There is no, the Joker's dead and there's a power vacuum. There is no, Two-Face has this territory or this territory. He just wants to make enough money to kind of force everyone to behave the way he wants
them to, yeah.
And when they don't, he like throws a tantrum.
But a super violent tantrum, right.
And the way he just kind of collects things and this weird concept of ownership that kind of drips through, like really parallels what Harley's trying to do.
And they're both oddly affected by the Joker. Like this character that's not on screen. Like he wants more, or he wants to take over work, knowing that guy is still the number one. But I want to do my. I want to buy my piece. Right. Exactly.
And it's weird because there's nothing really beyond that to him.
No.
He's just kind of like
wants that.
A pissed off kid.
Right.
And I love that.
It's great.
I love that we just have this like petulant child that just wants everything. They add a lot more layers to him than a lot of the comics do. And I think it's a much different take for a Gotham villain.
It is.
Who are normally like very serious and scary and lethal, and they're going to control you through fear and power. He would rather control you through just like money.
Power and money.
Like he wants to own you the way corporations already own us.
Correct. And I love... We haven't really seen... We got a small one in Christopher Nolan's, but we really hadn't seen anything with Victor Saz on screen. And this was a really well put together... Because Victor normally is just an off-the-wall serial killer. We use him as the
character that looks crazy because he's cut up, and he kind of exists to just show how easily Batman can beat a normal person.
Right, and here he has way more layers. He's like... in a weird way, he fetishizes and idolizes... Roman so much that like anything that goes wrong, anything that's like going against him, I have to tell him or I have to protect him because he is my guy.
It's almost like, and they kind of play it up like maybe they're in a relationship,
quasi-gay, like there's some homo, like erotic. Who cares?
Which I feel like we've had this conversation to death. Just do it.
Right. If you're in it,
no one's upset about it.
Right.
Just do it. That would have been great. That would have been a very interesting thing to have. But
I feel like somebody was a little afraid to put their
but at least they didn't do the thing where they were like, DC's first gay superhero might exist. Like,
correct.
You know, they didn't Avengers Infinity War.
Marvels, that's the best,
The first gay Marvel character.
Or Star
Wars. He cried at the salad.
Or Star Wars, like the first, stop it. They kissed in the background, shut up.
We didn't Disney it, at least. We just had these kind of effeminate characters, which is also like, Not a bad thing to just be like,
they just are effeminate.
Here's a fluid dude who's just living. He doesn't care.
Correct.
But yeah, they really build up Victor to be more of this like weird caregiver for him.
Yeah.
Like it's another codependent relationship. I think it kind of echoes what Harley and the Joker were.
He is Harley.
They're the bottom shelf cereal of Harley and the Joker.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing to parallel to just go, this is how it was. He was the guy who's like, pull over. I do everything for him. I call and I baby him and I wash him and I'm always there. And if I'm not there, then everything's going to go off the walls.
Everything's going to fall apart.
And then he gets shot in the neck by Huntress, who I felt like her story being wedged in here was awesome. But there was enough meat on that bone that I could have had a whole movie.
Yeah,
I loved
she
this
felt
character.
out of all the three main women, Montoya actually even got more screen time. I just feel like she got the least amount of screen time, and it just felt like I was a bit missing. But I think
they tied it in well by making Zaz one of the firing
it ties
squad.
in all together. And I'm like, okay, she was kind of always here, and I think Mary Elizabeth is killing it so much that when she's on screen, I'm like, all right, fine. I'll take the little bit that I got because I don't know if I could take that energy an entire film, but getting it in those doses, I'm like, all right, this works.
Another character that I feel like they made a little bit more three-dimensional. I feel like the
Huntress,
the last live-action Huntress was an Arrow, right? And it
the
was
most recent, yes. Yeah.
Where it was like, I just love Oliver and I'm gone.
Correct.
And I feel like that's kind of what we do with that character a lot. And kind
Even
of having
in the BOP show back in the day, that was kind of.
we don't. No one needs to talk about that. I don't even think Crisis on Infinite Earth had that.
They did. They had her on the rooftop at one point.
Oh yeah, that came out.
That's a thing.
We tried, man. There's the weird era where we just threw it all out of
Break them all out there.
Man, I forgot about the Birds of Prey TV show. It doesn't matter though. Having her be this super badass assassin that's like deeply insecure and working on the rest, and we've never seen a character brand themselves, right?
Not in the film stuff, no.
So watching her kind of keep trying to have these like,
mirror,
I'm the Huntress, and subtle jokes where they call me the Huntress, and then Harley interrupts. She calls herself Huntress. I was like, that's a very smart.
It's clever.
That's like an old school Simpson under the radar bit.
It is.
And watching her keep struggling to have this identity, and even the people kind of like, well, it's a bow and arrow, and it's crossbows. It's not a bow and arrow. I'm not 12.
But I love that when she does do her thing and basically all her people are off the list, Harley just kind of like, even though it's an off-the-cuff moment, she kind of gives her that psych moment, like, you aren't going to be any happier now that everybody's gone. Like, you still
that's
are
another moment where she plays therapist, and she's like, revenge is very rarely the catharsis that we're looking for, and actually, you're just going to keep going down this spiral. And it was moments like that where Harley's that smart that she can do it that quickly and then like move on.
Go right back on.
Which I love. I also loved her in the diner at the end with the tacos, but everyone's like, "You're just such a badass." And, well, I liked how you could kick really high in those pants. She doesn't know how to interact with people. Because she's been
stilted off on the island for days. She has no idea how to interact with people, especially women. She's like, I guess we can do this together, I guess.
I would have loved, and I know why we didn't have it, but they have that moment of, we have to clean up the streets on our own. Let's go be the Birds of Prey. This is Gotham City. And I know that we now live in a world, we've made it there, right? In Iron Man 3, everyone was like, where are the Avengers? Just call the Avengers. Blah, blah, blah. We all had to get used to the same thing comic books do, where they don't always get to call
Sometimes they're not always around.
Right. Like, people are busy.
Right.
But I was like, oh man, that would have been a really great moment to just have Batman's off-world with the Justice League. No one's in Gotham. Or some weird, we can now keep doing these movies, but don't worry about Ben Affleck's Batman.
Yeah.
Or just he's busy with the Joker and Freeze. We'll handle this.
We'll get this stuff while he handles
this. This is not, as Mysterio said in Far From Home, an Avengers-level threat. Right. You could have kind of had that and really... But that's where I don't know what DC wants to do.
That's the very end coda is where I was kind of... I won't say the movie messed up, but I was like, now you're making me think about your future, and I don't see a clear-cut plan. Like, are we going to get a Birds of Prey proper with with Montoya and Huntress and Canary and Batgirl in there, right? Are we going to get that, or are we going to get well, Harley, we know where she's going to end up next. There's another Suicide Squad coming, and she's in that, so we know what happens to her. But does that movie act like this film exists? Like, is that Suicide Squad before or after this? Like, do we get in that Suicide Squad the Harley Quinn that has kind of grown up a little bit and is like now a bit more aware of who she is? Or is that a completely different
even part of this?
Exactly. I was like, that's where I'm confused with what the DCEU is doing, because I don't know if all of these are one-offs or one of sometimes this part will plug in, this part we won't. I don't know.
Yeah, they have a very weird drag and drop situation.
Yeah.
Because obviously this is never going to be part of Joker.
No.
Which is fine.
Right.
Because I don't want that.
No, I don't. As much as Joker is solid, I don't want my comic book Batman stuff. I want to get the freaky stuff. I want Clayface. I want all of those weird things that Batman kind of leans into.
That's what I'm ready for. Right. I'm ready for some weirder Batman stuff. Give me Clayface and the ventriloquist.
Yeah, I want the ventriloquist. I want the Mad Hatter. Like, I want all of that weird stuff.
So let's talk about this box office that now everyone is talking about.
Man.
So it is unfortunately, the lowest of the DCEU at a domestic opening of 33. Now, proper context, worldwide it has made $81.2 million off of its $84 million production budget.
Right.
So when we throw around words like bomb, that's inaccurate. Yeah. Under expectations is a perfectly fine sentence to say.
And we still have to see how it continues on multiple weeks to see if we can put it in that bomb category.
But yeah, when you compare it, and some of this is even, I don't think that we have superhero fatigue yet.
No.
I think we'll know if we have superhero fatigue
when we get to Wonder Woman.
I don't even think then. I think we have to get all the way past Eternals.
Yes.
I think once
to see if the stuff post Infinity War,
Black Widow,
Endgame,
and Eternals and Shang-Chi don't quite connect.
Correct.
Then I'll be ready. But
because
it's stupid to say there's fatigue when the Joker made $1 billion and is nominated for an Oscar.
I think there's several factors into this, but like the Marvel ones will be a clear cut because Marvel has up until Endgame has had this. When you see the Marvel logo,
right,
people are showing up at this point.
Right, and look, I mean, like Dark Phoenix didn't do well, so it's not the first time.
Correct.
But what do you think happened?
Right off the gate, I think we said at the beginning, I think the marketing for this film was atrocious. I think the poster...
Define atrocious, because the marketing is everywhere.
But
I think media placement is only part of marketing.
Correct. I think the trailers were not good. I don't think those were, either of them, the first or final trailer, were really cut that well. I think the first one it was super stylized, so you kind of got an idea of what was going, like as far as the visuals they were going for. But it didn't feel like it was something that I needed to see in the theater. I think those colorful posters were a little too much. Felt like a Photoshop realm type of thing as opposed to being something that I could actually tangibly get my brain around to watch. But I think some of the biggest things, I don't know if this studio honestly felt that they had something here, because this feels like a dump off date and something that movie reviews typically don't have day before embargoes unless there's a problem. You are immediately putting a white flag up to say, oh, we don't believe in this, we don't think this is something, and then these reviews come out. If this has been allowed to have the reviews the Friday before,
I mean, look at the
audiences
Joker
would have shown up.
Embargo.
Right. Yeah.
It was like a month before, and all anyone was talking about was how this was the biggest thing in the world, the greatest movie ever made. Joaquin Phoenix is transformative. Mm-hmm. You also had a little bit of controversy. People like a good controversy. But I'm glad you said that. I don't think the studio really believed in it.
Yeah.
Which is really a shame.
It sucks.
It really kind of shows that there's somebody at Warner Brothers who just doesn't know what they have.
Yeah, and also it shows me that the folks at Warner Brothers, whoever's in charge of their DCEU stuff or their DC stuff, don't know comics, like don't know these films, like don't know these characters.
For a long time.
Yeah, and that's very evident in the way that they've treated this film, because I think honestly, more so than Shazam, more so even than Aquaman, because that Aquaman is not the Aquaman that is in comics. This is the closest that you get to a one-to-one what these characters are in
Harley,
in comics.
Shazam,
right.
Wonder Woman, they kind of hit on the head.
Yeah, it's just I just don't know. It's clear they don't have a Kevin Feige on that end yet to kind of like, this is what this character represents. Even if we do some things that are slightly different, we still get the heart of this character. This movie gets the heart of this character. I just don't think anybody in those studios believed in whatever that was.
Right. I'm also glad you brought up the date.
Yeah.
I think January is always January, with
Correct.
the exception of Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah, that's a
Historically, this date has had the Lego Movie, the Lego Movie 2. A lot of kids' movies have been in this area.
because you get the President's Day weekend the following, like around this time.
And that's been this new, ever since the Kingsman, and I think even before that, like the original Daredevil and Ghost Rider had that weekend too. But Kingsman blew it up. R-rated blew it
Nuts.
up.
Yeah.
Deadpool then annihilated it. We've had this trend of
Panther was in here, but it wasn't an R-rated film, but it's still.
and that's a very unique.
That's a outlier, because that's a specific thing.
But yes, that also had that weekend.
Right.
There's other factors to Black
yes,
Panther.
right.
I don't know that I think this date is just a throwaway date. I agree that it's a little weird. That being said, next weekend with President's Day and Valentine's Day
like
is
5
already
releases,
competitive.
yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog,
Yeah.
Fantasy Island,
Right.
and The Photograph.
which is a romantic film for Valentine's Day.
Do we think this would have done better next week in that PG-13
I don't think
horror
so.
family film?
Because you're splitting everything. That's an R-rated. This is an R-rated film. Sonic's a kid's film. Photograph's a romantic film, and then Fantasy Island's a horror film, which is kind of almost a direct
PG-13 horror film, I think.
Which means the girls, especially the audience that have Harley Quinn, who should be seeing this, who can't because it's R-rated, will probably be seeing Fantasy Island instead.
And I think there are people post-track now, like ComScore post-track that always has after it, which will show you the demos and what people are saying as they walk out of the theater, always kind of has, here's what everyone's saying. And everyone's saying a lot about this movie, and everyone's kind of, should we go, should we not go? But they'll tell you that an average moviegoer now, and this was also in the NPAA's 2019 study that just came out, one movie in theaters a month. If that makes you a moviegoer, if you think a Ferrari looks cool, you're a car person.
Yeah.
Like, that's bad. If we're now being like, this is what a moviegoer does. They probably have already spent their dollar on Bad Boys and are probably going to spend their next dollar at Valentine's Day, President's Day weekend.
Right.
Either with the family for Sonic, with the teens for Fantasy
or the
Island,
romantic
on
film.
the date for the Photograph. Who knows? This movie might have this weird second
could get leggy.
thing. It might pull an Aquaman and just be in theaters till the end of time.
Yeah.
Because we also are going to now have like Blumhouse against Blumhouse with Fantasy Island one week, and then in week 2 it'll be the Invisible Man.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of got sandwiched between a lot of stuff. It also is really kind of a weird thing to say. General movie-going audiences, I don't think, connect to Harley Quinn as much as comic book purchasers who love the character.
It's very specific.
And without the movie star, which I always am one to be like, you don't always need it. You don't always need it.
You don't.
You need something, though.
Yeah.
And I love Margot Robbie, and everyone loves Margot Robbie, and she's so
super
good,
talented actress.
But I don't know that she's
a draw.
ever. Bombshell didn't do great. This didn't do great.
Tanya
didn't do great.
She's an Academy, she's an Oscar type
an
of character, which
Oscar.
those movies never have a box office pull like that. Like I said earlier too, I also think that the median age of a Harley Quinn fan is going to be that 13 to 17-year-old girl.
That's the other thing. So let's talk about this rating really quick, because my only other bullet here is online hype doesn't equal mainstream success, which I don't think we need to talk about much. That's just true.
It's a fact, yeah.
The R-rated superhero movie that everyone's been clamoring for since Deadpool.
Yeah.
We're in it. We're not afraid of it anymore.
No.
Logan, Deadpool, Deadpool 2, Joker, Birds of Prey. I think it's time for a new conversation. Does it always need to be R-rated just because we think it would be fun?
No.
Does Birds of Prey need to be R-rated?
You know what's funny? Because I don't my interaction or my first awareness of Harley Quinn was on the Batman animated series, and that was a PG-13 animated show. Nothing that character did at that point or has done since then made me believe that she ever needed to be in a film that was rated R. Nothing. Like they went out of their way to add these F-bombs and all of a little bit more violence just to be edgy and kind of like, oh, we can get that Deadpool audience, while doing that completely losing the actual audience they have.
Well, it's a weird thing when they mash up characters from Marvel and DC. They oftentimes do now be like Deadpool and Harley because they're both silly.
Right.
And I don't think that's fair. I think what these characters are actually about and represent is very, very different.
Correct.
I think the only reason we do that is because they're like the times 10 comic
far
book
as
silliness,
right.
comedy stuff.
And they're meta. They break the fourth wall a lot.
Yeah. I don't think this needed to be R-rated. I'm glad it was, but...
Yeah, there are moments that it feels good to be R, but you can cut some things out.
The content was adult enough with, like, the hangovers, the bad relationships, the bombs.
I always go back to The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is a PG-13 film. It feels like it's R because just the way that the weight of some things in that movie. But it's a PG-13 film. This movie could have easily been PG-13 if you drop half of those F-bombs. That's what makes this R. And there's a little sequence with Victor and Roman doing a cut-up of people's faces. You can still do that scene.
You can do that in
just
cutaway.
just do a cutaway.
Which they already do. We don't see a...
We don't see it.
We
you
never
just
see the face.
We just see him holding a flap. But like if you remove that scene, you're right back into PG-13 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that would have opened up for the families. It would have opened up for the teens who want to go on their own, who aren't just going to like buy a ticket to something else and sneak in or whatever.
Correct.
And I think also like backing that up even further, Harley Quinn is popular with 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and
she's on lunchboxes. She's like that, especially now that she has another show out, and then she's been on the DC superhero show with the other girls. Like Harley is known as a younger audience, and you've just said, nah, we don't want to talk to you guys.
Right. Which is really a shame, because you could have made this as unique and special of a movie and not gone for it. And I don't know, outside of like a couple of the fun times that they swore, I was like, I'm glad we went for this. Where like Joker, I'm like, I'm glad we put that R on there, and it really let us do some fucking weird stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, I don't need my Batman to be R. I don't need Guardians to be R.
No.
I don't, like, sometimes I'm like, it would be really fun to have like a dark, edgy PG-13 demon in a bottle Iron Man movie, but I don't need Iron Man to be R.
There's some people that I'm like, they have to be R. Like Punisher, he should be R. Right.
Daredevil,
you can get away with that.
Line,
right. So he's in the Dark Knight and where it's going to be PG-13/R. You can go either way. But there's like Spawn, if we ever get back to that, probably should be R. Like I think PG-13 is where you mess up with that film. But like stuff like Harley, like mostly Gotham gets into this place where they feel like the stuff that happens in Gotham should be R just because it's dark. It's a macabre type of world. It doesn't need to be R. You can get that with just PG-13 and the ambiance of the world.
Yeah. Well, I think you nailed it when it was like, look at the Batman Begins Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
That's some of the most intense superhero stuff that we've seen. And it's
Scarecrow is used in that, and he's killing it as a PG-13 character.
The Arkham Asylum games are not M-rated games, but they're still like
what is going on?
Brutal at times.
Yeah.
I guess if we want to just run it down really quick and do a comparative box office, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I do think it's worth being like, what went wrong?
Yeah.
Because I also don't want to live in a world where someone just goes, well, they don't go to the women movies. And I also don't want to live in a world where people are going, the terrible men, although that second group does exist.
They are there.
And I am upset about that.
Yeah, I wish they didn't.
I don't think that this movie didn't do well because the women aren't like that's just I don't even want to finish the sentence.
Yeah.
Bad marketing, closing off half your audience.
Yeah.
And I get it, right? Sometimes the R rating launches you to billions.
I will also say this. While Suicide Squad made a lot of money, it also was critically panned, and a lot of people did not like that movie. This feels like the sequel to that.
That's the other big thing.
Right.
And this, you know what? You're right. I should do the comp box office. Man of Steel's domestic was 116 million, BVS 166, and that will be the only time it goes up.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad 133, Wonder Woman 103, Justice League 93, Aquaman 67. That's an outlier because it had legs and went to $1 billion.
Right.
But it crossed $1 billion in like the end of January.
It stayed a while because it was during the holiday season, so it kept going.
Yeah. Shazam, and people forget what that holiday looked like. That was our year without Star Wars, where it was like
it was just that.
It was like we killed off a gang boss and everyone vied for the space.
I'm taking it.
Bumblebee Man, Spider-Verse, Mary Poppins, Aquaman. Nothing made enough money that week.
No.
Which is crazy because Spider-Verse won an Oscar and Aquaman made $1 billion. And everyone forgot about Bumblebee.
Which sucks because it's great.
Shazam 53, Birds of Prey 33. So, downward each time. I don't have the Rotten Tomato scores in front of me, but I'll wager dollars to donuts. Man of Steel, not great. BVS, not great. Suicide Squad, terrible. Wonder Woman, good.
It was good, yeah.
But some people like
the ending became, it was like in
good
the
but safe.
80s, yeah. It's
Good but safe.
Right.
Justice League, whatever.
Same. It's a little less than Wonder Woman, but around the same, yeah.
People liked Aquaman, but I don't think they loved it.
Yeah.
People loved Shazam. I thought
Right.
it was okay.
Yeah.
And I loved Birds of Prey.
Right. And the critics and this was the only one I think that are like almost neck and neck as far as their scores is on Rotten Tomatoes. So it could extend out.
Yeah. I also don't have comic book numbers in front of me because they're very hard to find.
Right.
I think Birds of Prey aside, I think Birds of Prey is popular with specific people who love it. And I think the people who like it love it.
Right.
I think Harley Quinn is a bigger audience, but I don't think any of these characters are Wonder Woman big.
Correct.
Or Superman big or Batman big.
And for the non-inundated comic book fan, this title, Harley Quinn's at the last two words of this title.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything, like if you're just like looking at stuff and you're not really looking at the images and you're like, Birds of Prey, I don't know what that is, I'm out. Harley Quinn technically probably should have been the first two words of this thing.
That was the popular joke before Avengers came out was if Thor and Captain America don't do well, the Avengers will be renamed Iron Man and the Avengers.
Correct. Yeah.
Like that was the joke going around
Yeah.
town. Like put your marquee.
You
have
ace.
one marquee
Right.
character and no marquee actors,
Right.
and that character's at the end of your marquee.
Yeah.
Like that's a problem.
That's an issue.
Look, I loved the movie.
I did
You
too.
loved the movie.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite of the DCEU movies.
It's real. If it's not, it's real close. Like that and Wonder Woman are neck and neck. But I just love this from start to finish. So I think it's
special.
right there. Yeah,
it's unique.
It is.
I think if you haven't
Has its
seen it,
own
you should
voice.
go support it.
Yeah.
Because I also think you should go support movies that are coming out next week. But I just don't want to learn the wrong lessons, and I don't want to feed fire to the
I don't want to see
problematic
these
people.
think pieces that are coming out saying, "Oh, look at these men." Not it's like you're not right. I mean, not wrong, but I don't want to give them.
I also
flame.
don't want studios to learn the wrong lesson. I don't want it to be like Charlie's Angels didn't do well,
Right.
And this didn't do well,
And Alita Battle Angel
and
didn't
Alita
do well.
didn't do
Yeah.
well, and all of those except for Charlie's Angels were so good
Correct.
and different and
Different
special and
unique
fun.
and had a voice and had a something that was like fun and unique and effervescent to them. And
Now, granted, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel,
both billions.
Fast and the Furious.
It's going to be
movies.
interesting to see what this Black Widow does because that's the kind of the
That is now my
let's
see what happens
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
Are we getting tired of super? I'm not quite ready to say that
Right.
yet. I'll be ready to say that if
But if
Black
that-
Widow underperforms, if Wonder Woman underperforms, and if Eternals underperforms.
If Widow underperforms, it's going to start making me question a little bit because Marvel has had this thing like no matter what we can put a talking tree and a raccoon, you're going to go watch this film. And if this starts going the other way, then that's going to be the first time that DC has never had that cachet with the audience. Marvel has. So if that starts turning, that's when I'm like, okay.
We have been doing it for a decade.
Yeah.
Like we've had a pretty longer,
Right.
really
Yeah.
since Spider-Man and X-Men. It's been a 20-year run of these things. Like everyone's always kind of been like, one day the other shoe has to drop, and I don't think I'm ready to be like it's dropping, but
It could be.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. I loved the movie. If you loved this show, you can leave us a review on iTunes. You can give us a good star there. You can follow us on Twitter at Hollywood Already Did It. You can join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hollywood Already Did It. I'm at As Always Blake, and Terrence is at Terrence Tatum, and we will see you next week.
Later.